I'm pretty excited to be here. It's always interesting to look at the journey that I was able to take back from when 2009, when me and my college roommate made a decision that we were going to start a business and knew nothing about technology. So those of you that don't know me, I knew nothing about tech. I didn't know what an IP address was. I didn't know how to fix a computer. I didn't know what a server did. I didn't know what a network did. I knew people used them, and I was always very good at systems. I'd gotten into sales in 2000, maybe 4 or 5. Yeah, 5. And the reason I got into sales is I was kind of in a situation in my life where I was in college, I was broke. My parents didn't have money. They couldn't really support me from that perspective. And I couldn't pay my truck note because I made some bad decisions and went to spring break when I probably shouldn't have went. And my girlfriend, who's now my wife today, had to pay my car note. And I think back to that day, and it was very humbling when I called my father and I asked him, I said, "Hey, Dad, would you mind, loaning me $400 so I could pay my truck note?" And he got like really quiet on the phone, and he said, "How old are you?" And I said, 20. And he says, "That's right. You're a man. Figure it the fuck out," and hung up. So, it was pretty depressing. I didn't have any money in the bank. And I took a customer service job at Verizon Wireless and Retail. And I decided, only reason I took the job is it paid $12.50 an hour. And at the time I was a bank teller and I made $7 something an hour. So, I got the job, and my first month there, one of the guys that worked there was in sales, and he was like showing me his commission check, and it was $5,000. And I remember thinking in my head, like, oh, wow, I want to make $5,000. I want to be in sales. So I remember telling the manager, like, I want to be in sales. And she's like, well, we don't have any positions open here. And I said, well, I know you're opening a new store in Covington. I would love to go be a salesperson there. And she's like, well, we don't have headcount for a part-time salesperson. I was in college. I was working 23 hours a week there. And I told her if she gave me an E-code, I would outsell every one of the reps in the store. And I did that. I called every person I knew, every fraternity brothers, parents, and they all came and bought cell phones from me at Verizon. And I ended up getting a job in sales. And that was kind of it. Once I got into sales, my first year doing that, I made $94,000 working 23 hours a week selling cell phones in a retail store. And I didn't do that by waiting for people to walk in the store to buy cell phones from me. I did that because I got extremely aggressive, and I reverse engineered my comp plan, and I figured out how much money I needed to make per day. And if I knew I made an average of $500, I would make really good money. And I actually did better than that, right? To produce that income. And it goes back to that story, and you'll see a picture up here. My dad was a boat captain. Just a hard, blue collar guy that always worked. I didn't grow up in a broken home, but I didn't grow up in like this very stable home either. My mother was a drug addict. She was a great mom, right? Just had a really bad problem. And, it made me grow up at a really early age. And I remember growing up as a child, and I remember asking my dad for allowance one day, and he looked at me and said, well, how many deposits did you put in my checking account? And I said, none. And he looked at me and said, remember, son, if you make no deposits, you make no withdrawals. So one day I'm going to write a book because I really like that saying. And I think that saying means a lot when it comes to life in general, right? When you make deposits in your marriage, you can have a good marriage. When you make deposits in your business, you can create something really special. And we've proven that, I bootstrapped this business. I don't have private equity. I've done everything on my own. I deposited $400 in 2009 in telecom, and we have a $34 million run rate. And we just took on some debt for the first time to do an acquisition. And really didn't have to do it, but everybody keeps telling me that there is good debt. So I guess you have to do some of it. So I want you to think about that when you go back to your business, go back home and think about what deposits are you making. And the first year of business in 2009, we did $8,000 in sales, $8,400. It was really dark times for me to think about making $200,000 a year in outside sales, and I got let go from Verizon. They had purchased Alltel, and there was double headcount. I was, the top rep. Life was good, and then I get let go. And I was like, wow, that was interesting. You know, I couldn't believe they fired me with all the success that I was having within the company. At the time, it was the scariest thing that ever happened to me. But today it was like obviously a blessing. I wouldn't be where I am. And I think back to that, and there were days, lots of days that I wanted to quit in 2009. And originally we had started out to just do consulting, and we were going to go out and my plan was to save people money on their cell phones and landline bills and take a percentage of the savings. So telecom expense management. No idea that it was going to be a tech company. So as we started doing that, we obviously did not have success in that first year. I had convinced my college roommate to quit his job at Nuvox, who eventually got bought out by Windstream, to come on the journey with me. And he did it. You know, Jimmy quit his job, came in. I think at the time, the reality was, I think misery just wanted company. And I didn't have a paycheck coming in, so I didn't want him to have one either because I knew it would create an amount of hunger. So, and it worked, right? We came together and we worked through it, and there was lots of times where we both wanted to quit. Well, in 2010, that year was rough too. We did about $64,000 in top line revenue. So in 2 years, we didn't break $100,000, which most people, I will tell you, would have quit. You know, my wife at the time was telling me I needed to go get a real job. I knew I was really good at sales. So I knew that I could just go out and take a job and just go sell for AT&T or T-Mobile or one of them and make it work. Well, it got really frustrating to me, you know, when I came home one day and my wife actually threatened to divorce me because I wasn't providing. And I kind of understand where she was coming from at the time. She was out working, and I was just like every day going to drive around in my car and pass out business cards, trying to meet as many people as I possibly could. And I wasn't getting any return. So big challenges, right? Personally, financially, it just, Jimmy and I would literally go home every day and wonder like how we were going to make it. You know, in 2009, the Saints went to the Super Bowl. I actually created a T-shirt company, and I was walking up and down Portrush with T-shirts and a duffel bag, selling T-shirts on the street, you know, to make ends meet. And actually, I owned a gym at the time too. So, but I didn't make any money from the gym. It was more of a hobby, and if the vending machine did good, we ate good that month, you know. So, we made it work, right? It's just like anything in life. You know, humans, they adapt to their situations, and we figure it out, and we just keep doing it. You know, and as we, you know, today, as I sit, there's a lot of people that come to me all the time and ask me like, man, how'd you do it? You know, and I think back to 2010, what got us into going into technology is we had a client that wanted to buy a phone system, and we went out and got quotes for him from Blackbox and Gage and a few other people, because I was his telecom consultant. Right at the time, I think I would have done anything to make money. So we went out and got quotes. And I remember going back to the gym one day, and me and Jimmy were working out, and he looked at me and he goes, man, what if we sold Mr. Bryan that phone system? And I remember looking at Jimmy and saying, man, what the fuck do we know about phone systems? Like, we don't know how to put this in. How are we going to do that? And he said, you know, man, I found this company, and we could drive down to Atlanta, and we can get certified on the Avaya IP office. That's what they wanted to buy. And again, young, dumb, not really understanding it. I said, let me drive out to Houma and see what they'll say. So I drove down to Houma. I remember walking to Mr. Bryan's office. Ms. Donna, his office manager, knew I was there. And I walked in his office and I said, hey, Mr. B, and look, this guy's an old Marine, super aggressive. He looked at me and said, I said, hey, what do you think about buying that phone system for me and Jimmy? And he looked at me and said, he calls me Torres. And he looked at me and he said, Torres, what the fuck you know about phone systems? And I said, I don't know much, but Jimmy did some research and we could get certified and we could put this system in. And he looked at me and said, Shawn, you know, I have an $85 million company. The phones we're very reliant on our telephones, and I cannot put that in the hands of you to practice in my business. I apologize. And he told me no. And I remember walking out at that moment and I was like, I felt so defeated. Like I can still feel that feeling today. And walking out of that office, I can picture it. I remember Donna looking at me and saying, hey, Shawn, what did he say? And I was like, well, he told me no. And she's like, come here, let's go back in there. And I don't know, like, I know we got some people from Louisiana, and people in Houma have this like different Cajun accent. It's always interesting. And she walked me back in the office and she looked at Mr. Bryan and she goes, hey, Mr. B, you remember that guy that gave you that first shot on that first engine? And he just kind of sat there looking at her with like this pissed off look that she was challenging him. And she said, why don't you get this little boy a shot? And I remember him sitting there looking at me, and he's like, don't fuck this up. We definitely fucked it up. So it was a disaster. We drove to Atlanta. I remember walking in the room, and it's all these technical people that were like getting certified in the IP office. And I just stood up in the room in front of all these techs and said, my name's Shawn Torres. I own in telecom, and I don't know anything about phone systems, and I'm excited to learn. And they all looked at me, and, several techs throughout that week told me that I would never get to where I am today. And believe it or not, I didn't really believe it either. I just knew that I wouldn't quit. And I sat through that training, and I watched YouTube video after YouTube video and just studied and learned and knew that I didn't really have a choice and I needed it to work. We actually, thinking back now, like in that room, they wanted us to connect 3 locations together, and I didn't know what a firewall or router was. And some guys were in there from an IT company in Atlanta, and they told me that I could put sonic wall routers and build a VPN connection across to the sites and be able to get it to 3-digit dial. And I was like, okay, well, can I pay you to do that for me? So they ended up actually doing that for us. And I remember those guys taking them to dinner in Atlanta, and they told Jimmy and I that, like, we wouldn't, like, man, you guys are fucking crazy that you're even going to try this. But, we did it. We finished it. It took us about 7 weeks to finish that project, which in hindsight, looking at it as we got really good, we could probably do that in 2 days, maybe a day today, right? But what I learned is that if you just show up every day and you just work hard at it, like, you can get good at things. I didn't grow up as the best salesperson. I was an introvert as I was younger. I just always liked to ask a lot of questions, and I was always very curious. I'm still very curious. And I like to learn people and understand them, and the biggest thing that I hear from a lot of MSPs today is, well, we don't know sales. And I always laugh because I was like, well, I didn't know what the fuck a server was. So, and if you really think about it, if you practice sales and you get good at it, it's kind of like playing golf, right? I suck at golf, but I'm not afraid to go swing the club and just keep swinging it, and eventually I'll get better, right? I just know that when I go, I got to bring a case of balls, and most of my sales reps, they bring like 1 ball. So it's the same concept from a selling perspective. And I've had these MSPs come up to me today, and they're like, hey, would you be willing to coach me and teach me and this and that? And, I'm not a coach. I don't want to coach. It gets very frustrating for me when they don't listen to me. I met this guy at a conference. You'll love this. And he was very nice. And he's like, man, I really want you to help me out. And I really want to get my MSP off the ground. I've been doing this for 12 years. I'm not growing. I'm at $2 million in revenue, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, like, why don't we get back? We'll do the Teams call, and like, let's see kind of what you're doing and what's working. And he tells me, he says, get on the call. And I said, well, man, why do people buy managed service from you? And he goes, well, I'm really good at law firms. I said, okay, but why? Like, what do you do for law firms, and where are you really good at it? And he starts getting like really technical, right? And I kind of brought him back and was like, I think you need to discuss the business cases and how you create efficiencies for the attorneys and business continuity and focus on those things. I was like, but, how are you getting your attorneys? And he's like, well, I get referrals. And I was like, great. Referrals are great. I don't think that's a bad thing. But you need more, right? He's like, I do. And I was like, well, like, why don't you just call all the attorneys? He lived in Jersey. And I'm thinking, like, in my head, I'm like, holy shit. Like, I live in Slidell, Louisiana. Like, there's not a lot of business there. If I could do this in Slidell, you live in New Jersey. Like, there's a lot of opportunity. So just call the attorneys. And he's like, well, like, how do you get your list? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I said, I guess I can like tell you like these companies that call all the time, and I'm sure you get these calls and they want to sell you their list. Like, there's a really neat tool. And I was like, hey man, I'm gonna get you a list, and I'm just gonna hook you up. And he's like, really? I said, yeah. I was like, let's do a screen share, and I'm gonna show you how to get a really good list. And I just went on Google and I typed in his zip code and I typed in attorneys. And I was like, just call them, And I told him, I said, look, man, I'm willing to help you. I said, but what I want you to do is I want you to go call those people, and then I want you to record the call, and I want you to, let's meet next week and let's have a conversation on how those calls went, because I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I said, let's see what you're doing and how you're doing it, and we'll go from there. The next week when we got on the call, he didn't pick up the phone one time. So I'm not going to coach him because he doesn't want to help himself, right? It's kind of like losing weight. I used to be really fat, And I decided one day that I didn't want to be fat anymore. And I was like, I'm gonna get on this diet and I'm gonna do it. And it's very hard. It will teach you what you can do to your body. I got into competitive bodybuilding. I remember telling my wife I was gonna win a bodybuilding show, and she laughed at me. And she's like, "I love you for who you are," which isn't true. I mean, that's a lie, So I went and did it, and I won the show. Right? It was super exciting. It changed my mindset on what's capable. But if you think about that, it was working at it every day and staying disciplined and consistent. And the biggest thing that I see in the MSP space is it's so many technical people. And I think that's great. You have to be technical. You need those resources and you have to understand it. And I think that helps you from a sales perspective because you do understand it. I think the biggest problem is like everybody makes excuses on why they don't want to pick up the phone and just call. They think they're going to hire Robin Robbins. I don't know if anybody in this room has hired them. If you have, like, if you really want to just throw me $6,000 a month, I could feed you some snake oil too. Like, it's not real. Like, it's going to take getting off your ass and just doing it. And once you do it over and over and over again, at some point, I assure you, you will get really good at it, right? It's kind of like, I'm sure a lot of you at one point didn't know how to program a firewall or didn't know how to program a server. And what did you do? Like, you go do it and you get in situations that are hard and it sucks and you got to figure it out and you don't have anybody else to call, right? And I think that from a sales perspective, that if you just do it and make time to do it. I've watched a lot of salespeople in my organization fail, and 90% of the time I can recognize the ones that are going to fail right off the bat because they're not disciplined. They don't get up every day. They don't come to work ready. They don't smile and dial. They make excuses. They do research. That's the term we hear all the time. I'm doing research. Research for what? Like, just talk to people, I had a guy come to me one day and he's like, "Hey, Shawn, I hear you're really good at this. And like, teach me your script." And I was like, "I don't really have a script. What does the script do?" And I get it. Like, I'm learning today you have to have forms of scripts, but don't be a robot. Like, just talk to people. I love calling people and just saying, "Hey, Bob, it's Shawn. How you doing?" And they're like really confused, right? And they're like, who is this guy calling me? And I just have a conversation, right? It's kind of like dating. I'm sure we've all dated at some point. And think about it. Like, would you walk up to someone and be like, "Hey, you want to go get married?" Like, no. Like, you're gonna introduce yourself to them. You're gonna talk to them. You're gonna get to know them. That's really what sales is about, is understanding people. And people buy from people and they trust you and they learn from you. And it's not hard, right? Sales is not, in my opinion, sales takes will, not skill. Programming routers and networks takes skill, right? That's way harder than sales. Yes, is it uncomfortable? Sure. But why not? And if you're not going to do it, I told a guy one day, he asked me to coach him at the Build It IT event. And I told him, I said, "Hey man, you want my advice?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Why do you call yourself a CEO?" And he said, "Well, it's my company." And I said, "No, I get that. But do you think that a CEO of any large organization that hadn't had growth or profitability in the last 4 years would still work there?" And he looked at me and said, "Well, no." I'm like, "Then why are you still trying to be the CEO?" And I think so many people in MSPs feel like they need to be the man. Like, but if you can't grow your business and you can't go drive revenue and do those things, like, and build strategy and understand where you're going and paint the vision for your people, like, then you shouldn't call yourself the CEO. You should hire somebody that can come in and drive revenue and build the business and just go get rich. Like, you can, it's there. The opportunity's there. Or hire people, hire salespeople. I hear all the time, "Well, I can't hire salespeople because I don't know how to manage them." Managing salespeople is probably the easiest thing in the world. It's activity, right? What does activity lead to? Opportunity. Opportunities lead to quotes. Quotes lead to closed deals, right? And if you understand your metrics, and those of you that are in sales in this room, if you don't know your metrics, you're not doing yourself justice to understand how important it is. And it's just like running your help desk. Do you have KPIs for your help desk people? Sure. Why? Because if you can measure it, you can manage it. So it's the same concept in sales. And too many people get impatient with salespeople, and I've done that myself, where they don't produce immediately. But think about it, y'all. Like, we're in an industry where, say you pay a salesperson $50K and you pay them 1 times MRR. Make it simple. Sell 10,000, you make 10,000, right? And say they go sell 30,000 in MRR in the first year. Like, you still will net profit on that rep. The problem is what people don't do is they're looking for immediate return, like right now. And the reality is they have to learn your business. They have to understand it. Most of them don't know this industry. They don't know the technical side of things. You know, me and Ben were talking earlier. It's like, just go be the solution architect in the room and let them run sales process. You know, understand what your sales process is. It's the same thing you have for like onboarding. How many people in the room have an onboarding process? Then why would you not have a sales process? And just follow the process and look at what went wrong in that process. It's the same thing like perfecting onboarding, right? Like we're still probably not the best at onboarding because we do so much of it, right? I talked to those MSPs like, yeah, we brought on 5 new clients this year. I'm like, holy shit, you know, we do like 5 or 6 a month, you know. Just this year we're at 227,000 a net new MRR for the year, right? Ben, what's our marketing budget? We don't have one. I fucking hate marketing. I hope there's not marketing people in here. Just pick up the phone. Like, just go talk to people. Like, that's the biggest thing that I will tell you. In most markets today, people aren't just going out and talking to people and show up every single day. You know, I rode around in my car for 5 years by myself from 7 in the morning till 6 at night. And I always do this. I was going to sell something that week. And I wasn't going to have no zeros on the board, right? And I had to because I wanted to eat, right? And I did $1 million, you know, in 2011. We did our first $1 million in revenue. And I remember that journey from 8,000 to 64,000 to $1 million. And it was like, holy shit, like we just did it. And all I did, and everybody always asks me like, what'd you do? I held myself accountable to the number. You know, if you take $1 million and you divide it by 12, it's $83,333 a month. And I wrote on a whiteboard in my room, $83,333. And every time I sold something, I would just subtract it and keep doing that. And then as I got to my number, and then the next month, if I didn't hit 83,333, guess what I had to do? I had to sell more. So like, I didn't allow myself to sit there and fail. Like, I was in control of my destiny, and you all are all in control of your own destiny. Even if you work at a company, like, you can be successful and be an entrepreneur. I think an entrepreneur is actually cooler than an entrepreneur because you don't have the stress of payroll. And those of you in the room that have understood payroll, it's fucking expensive. You know, I used to laugh when my payroll was like $200,000 a month and be like, holy shit, this is crazy. And our payroll today is about $800,000 a month, you know? So, but again, it's all economies of scale, right? And as you build the business, and if you hire really good people and you keep investing in your business, you can be successful. I think a lot of MSPs get to $2 and $3 million or $5 million in revenue, and they pay themselves $500,000 a year. I think you're insane if you do that. You don't want to grow. That's a lifestyle business for yourself, and that's okay too. But don't sit around and lie to yourself that you want to grow your business, because if you're paying yourself that kind of money at $3 or $5 million, you're not doing yourself any justice, because you're leaving no money on the table to make investments and to grow. I will tell you that. You know, I'm very transparent. I have a $34 million company. I pay myself $250,000 a year, right? I've done very well for myself, yes. But again, I don't take commissions. Yes, I've taken distributions, very, very small distributions over the years. I've tried to make sure that I can continue to invest and hire really good people and pay them a lot of money, because people don't want to come to work and not make money, right? Especially really good salespeople, right? And you could teach them. You could teach people how to be really good salespeople. You could teach yourself on how to be a salesperson. You know, and I remember doing that $1 million, and then I was like, all right. I remember telling Jimmy, I was like, man, if I could do $1 million, I think we could do $2 million. And he's like, all right, well, guess what I did? I wrote on the board again. I took 83,333, I multiplied it by 2, and I put that on the board, and I held myself accountable to that number. That year I did $2.2 million in revenue. Then I got really aggressive, and I told myself that if I could do 1 to 2 million, I'm going to go from 2 to 4. And I went to 4 million. I did 4 million. I didn't have any salespeople. I was by myself. Jimmy was my technician. And I played help desk too. There were days where I would have to go get in my Camry and take my air card, and I was playing help desk to move that change on things, right? And I sucked at it, but I did it. And again, I held myself accountable to running the meetings. I had a manager years back, and he told me that I needed to run a minimum 10 meetings a week to be successful. And I said, okay. My first day in outside sales, he looked at me and said, hey, Shawn, you got business cards? I said, yep. He's like, go get me some meetings. I was like, okay. I didn't know what that meant. I grabbed another rep, and he told me to go get my car and just drive around, park on the street, and walk door to door and introduce myself. So that's what I did. And yes, it was intimidating. It's always intimidating. I love when I go out with reps and they're like, oh, I don't want to go in there. It says no soliciting. I'm like, well, fucking ain't selling Girl Scout cookies to them. Like, we're not selling them anything. We're just getting information. I didn't have Zoom info and all this fancy shit that we have today to drive and get people's contact. I drove my ass over there. I walked in the door. I asked who did their IT. I asked who did their phones. They told me. I would make really nice with Betty at the front door. Betty would tell me I need to speak to Bob and I needed to call Bob. And I would tell Betty to give Bob my card and let him know I was going to be calling. That's all I did, y'all. And I did that, and I scaled this thing to $8 billion that way by myself. And again, you can do that. You can find someone to go do your server work. Are they going to do it as good as you do? Probably not. But get over that. And if not, hire someone to go be the salesperson. Like, you got to pick what your job's going to be, but don't go around and make excuses on why you can't grow your business when, like, you're in control of your business. It's a down economy right now, and we're still growing. Think about that, y'all. Like, how many people in the room are growing this year? Think about that. Look at the space we're in. There's so much opportunity. It's like a utility, right? If you unplug someone's router, what happens? They can't do shit. It's like turning the power off to their building, right? So there's a demand for what we have to offer. So think about that and understand that from the perspective of what we do and how we do it. So, as we started to scale and we got to that revenue number, it really started to get interesting because we really wanted to grow. And in all transparency, I just had this fictitious idea that I wanted to do 10 million in revenue. And the reason that I wanted to do 10 million in revenue is I always wanted a Rolex. And I had the money to buy a Rolex, but it was a rule that I made for myself. Me and my partner said, we're not going to buy a Rolex till we hit 10 million in revenue. And we tried, and a few times we failed. We still grew. We just didn't grow at the rate we wanted to. Because as you get larger, growing at 20 and 30% year over year is harder, right? Especially in this space. It's extremely hard. Well, I remember setting a goal. We had hired a CFO. We were doing 8 million. I told Frank we were going to do 10 million in revenue that year. Frank looked at me and said, you don't have the pipeline. And I'm like, yeah, but if I just reverse engineer 10 million and I hold myself accountable to it every month and we discuss it and we work as a team, we'll do 10 million. That year we did 10.5. I remember going into my annual session. I don't know how many of you are doing planning sessions quarterly and annually. If you're not, start like now. If you're not planning for next year right now, you probably should be. We have 4 months left in the year. I hope you understand that. And 2025 is coming quick. So if you're not focusing on what you're going to do next year, start. If you need help understanding what a quarterly looks like and how we structure them, I'm more than open to share how we do it. And it's pretty simple. Figure out the revenue you want to do, figure out the target that you're going to plan for next year, break it into quarters, and just work towards it. And talk about it every day. Talk about it with your team. Share your financials with your team. We are very open and transparent. We share the entire P&L with the entire company. It's not a secret. Yeah, we're making money. They want us to make money. That's how they get profit sharing. So think about that. When you get your company motivated to grow the business and you get everybody rowing in that same direction, it's very exciting. People, it's addictive. And it's not for everybody. I will tell you, I was talking to some folks yesterday and they were talking about how, man, I work for a fast growth company and engineers were always pissed off and this and that. Yes, you were right. It does cause problems, but think about it. Would you rather be working for a company that wasn't growing? Would you rather be working for a business that wasn't driving more revenue than the year before, not seeing new employees walk in the door, not having opportunity? Like you owe that to your staff that work for you. You owe them growth. That's the way I look at it every day. I realize that I work for my people and my organization. I come to work every day. I still dial on the phone. I like it. It's fun. I just did a big acquisition in Texas. And the first day I walked in the door, all these employees were freaking the fuck out, right? here's Big Shawn, and he's going to fire everybody, and blah, blah, blah. And the first day I walked in, I remember saying, like, hey, where's the salespeople at? And they were like, oh, they're back in the back in the sales bullpen. I was like, all right, cool. So I walked back there, introduced myself to the guys, and I was like, what y'all doing? And they're like, we're calling. And I was like, cool. You mind if I call too? And they were like, what? I'm like, can I dial too? Like, what y'all trying to sell? You know, and they were trying to sell these meetings for managed services. And I said, well, let's go one for one. Like, I'll do one, and then you do one, and you do one, and we'll all work together and see how we do. And like, I guarantee you, I'm going to get a fucking meeting first. I was pretty excited because the first call I did was just, they made me call an attorney, which we all know attorneys are a pain in the ass. And I get this attorney on the phone, he's a complete asshole to me. But we definitely got the meeting, and we should be closing that deal this week. Within the first 6 weeks we were there, Ben, we closed a $7,000 MSP account. You know, it took getting on the phone and closing the deal. The deal was there. The rep just didn't understand how to close and didn't understand how to drive the business. They built their managed service platform wrong. I looked at their quote, and they had a bunch of fucking tools all over it. Like, what? People don't care about tools, y'all. Like, last night, everybody like dinner last night? Who knows where the fucking chicken came from? Right? Who cares where the chicken came from? It was good, right? So think about it from that perspective. If you just provide good service, we don't do anything proprietary. There's nothing we do proprietary. And there's really good MSPs out there. And you can be friends with all your competition. It's okay. Like, I laugh with, so Don Monastery is the CEO of General Informatics. I love Don. And I always laugh because, like, we'll take a client from General Informatics and I'll call him and I'm like, hey, I fucking got you. You know, and then he'll take one from me and call me and be like, gotcha. You know, and it's cool. Like, there's enough business out there for all of us, right? And we're going to continue to drive that, and the demand's going to continue to happen. So, you know, when you get into your offices and you think about what you're doing in those planning sessions, you know, if you just plan to hit the number, you will hit the number. You know, the next year after we did 10.5, I remember going to my annual and I told Frank that I wanted to do 15 million. And Frank looked at me, my entire team looked at me in the annual, and they said, Shawn, you're being extremely aggressive on growth. Look how hard it was to go from 8.5 to 10.5, and now you just want to go do 15. Like, and like they started to back down the number to 12. I got really fucking pissed. And like I threw my hands down on the desk. I looked at everybody in the room and I was like, man, I'll pay you all a fuck ton of money. And like, you're going to tell me that it's not possible to do 15 million? This is bullshit. I'm not going to pay you all this fucking money if you can't fucking drive, and let's go get it. And like, I think we're giving up, and I think that's terrible. Like, why would we do that to ourselves? Let's set the goal and let's fucking do it. That year we did 16.5 million in revenue. So again, I didn't have the pipeline. I didn't have the way, but I did have a goal, and I worked towards it every single day, and I held myself accountable. I still hold myself accountable to that measurable every day. We talk about it. We talk about revenue. We talk about prospecting. Like, most people just don't do it. That's why they don't grow. They want to grow organically. They want to wait for someone to call them. They want to wait for their friend to tell their next friend about their IT company. That's bullshit. That's great. You can still do that, but you're not going to grow at the rate you want to grow. You have to go out there and go get it. There's no marketing company. Yeah, you can go to these marketing companies that'll do pay-per-click and all this bullshit. I did a pay-per-click campaign last year. I spent $85,000 in 90 days. You know how many leads I got off of it? 0. I didn't close one fucking deal. You know how pissed I was? I did all these outsourced SDR programs where they dial for you and they'll set meetings for you. How many people in this room have done that? How much success have you seen from it? None. It's snake oil. Quit doing that shit. No one is going to save your business but you. I will tell you that. If you want to go make money, go make money. Pick up the damn phone and start dialing, and you will get good at it. I promise, because it's painful to do it over and over and over. You know, I always laugh when a rep tells me, yeah, I'm making 25 calls a day. I'm like, yeah, that's why your fucking commission check sucks. Like 25 calls a day, I can make 25 calls in 30 minutes. Because 90% of the time, people don't answer the fucking phone. So make 100 calls, make 150 calls. I don't know what it's going to take. Because I know me, if I go get on the phone today, I think I could go sit in the back and call for CyberFox and get a fucking meeting. And I don't know much about CyberFox. I know it changes stuff with local admin, right? So, but again, that's not what it's about, right? I think about what would you say? How would you say it? You know, hey, what's your cyber posture for your company? Are you afraid of cybersecurity? Do you have that? You know, I love that answer where people say, oh, well, we already have that. You already have what? You know, I'm just trying to meet you and say hi to you. Like, you never know what's going to happen. You know how many times that somebody has told me they're not interested in meeting, and then we go meet with them and we uncover all the opportunity that's there, and they end up buying, right? And it happens, right? It's how you do discovery, and it's just how you get to know people, right? And if people like you and they trust you and they understand you, you can help them. We can help a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that need our help in this space, big time. I think a lot of it is just we're in our own heads and we think, oh, it's hard. It's kind of like working out, right? When you first start working out, it fucking sucks. It's hard, right? But if you go every day and you do it every day, it starts to become easy. It starts to become fun, and it becomes obsessive. It's the same thing from a dialing perspective. When you dial every fucking day and you keep doing it over and over and over again and it doesn't work, like, you're going to get good at it. I promise you. You have to, right? It's kind of like swinging the damn golf club. If you swing the golf club every day, you will get really good. That's why I like dialing still today. I don't want to lose it. You know, it freaks me out. I closed the deal last month on my own, and I just went out and did it. I didn't tell anybody, and I just went out and met with this guy, and I closed the deal. And the guy tried to negotiate with me and tried to tell me that he didn't want to pay me $16,000 to onboard his MSP. How many people out here go sell an MSP deal, and then they want to challenge you on the onboarding fee? All the time, right? And what do y'all do? You fucking bend on it, you do it, don't you? I've done it too, y'all, right? But think about it. I looked at guys, an auto dealer, and how many people in here sell to auto dealers? They're a motherfucker, right? They love saving money. So I'm talking to this dealer, and I looked him in his face, and I said, hey, Eddie, can I ask you a question? He said, yeah. I said, man, if I bring my car here and I buy tires from you, and then I get your guys to put the tires on my car, you going to bill me to put the tires on? And he's like, yeah. And I said, you're going to sell me the tires too, right? He said, yep. I said to Eddie, you expect me to send techs and engineers into here and to document all your shit that you don't have documented, so when you leave me in 3 to 5 years possibly, you have everything documented and you can go to some other MSP and just move things across, and you expect me to do that for free? And he just looked at me. He said, I guess we're doing the deal this way, right? I said, yes, sir. If you want to move forward with us, this is what I need you to sign. Because it costs money. Like, those techs cost me money every day. I'm not going to have them go out and work for free. Right? Don't discount your shit. You're not a pawn shop. I don't negotiate. It's not really up for negotiation. You're not buying a car where I know where the margin needs to be. I'm very transparent. You know, we closed a deal in Sacramento, California about a year ago now. And the guy, I was on the call with the sales rep, and he was getting flustered, and he couldn't get the deal to move across. And the guy kept saying, like, man, like, just the price is what we're hung up on. The price. It's never the price, y'all. They just don't understand what they're getting for the price. So they're not valuing what's there. So I literally pulled up sell, and you know how in sell it shows the margin on the right side? We're on a Teams call, and I pulled the margin up, and the margin's at 71%. And I said, hey, man, I'm going to break this down for you on how this works. I'm going to charge you this monthly number. I have hard costs that are involved in this for the tools and the services that we use, and then I got to service it. Service is going to eat up about 30%, sometimes 40% of that margin, right? Then I have overhead. I know my overhead's around 15 to 16%. I have a CFO, I have an accounting department, I have an HR department, I have a purchasing department. So all these things cost money. They're not free. And they're going to be able to service you when you need something. So therefore, I got to pay for that too. And then I'm left with about 15%. And then I got to pay taxes. So I'm left with about 7% to put in my pocket. And I'm not a nonprofit. I want to fucking make money. Like, I'm never going to fix your computer. I don't know how to fix computers. I don't know how to get in my own RMM system. I have no clue. And I don't care. I don't want to know. Because I don't need to get in the weeds in that shit. Because I want to go, I want to do business. And I want to work on my business and not work in my business. And I think a lot of times, and from some of the conversations I've heard over the last day, a lot of you are talking about shit that you shouldn't be talking about. And maybe I'm a dick for saying that, but I will tell you, like, you're not working on your business. You're working in your business. You're being a fucking very expensive tech. And I would never, ever do that. I think that's a terrible way to run your business. And I think you're never going to grow. And you're all here and taking time out of your day for what? You want to be better. You want to do more. You want to grow your business, right? That's real. So again, like, don't do $25 an hour work. pay someone to do that shit and teach them. Like if they don't do it right, hold them accountable and keep teaching them and working through it and focus on growing your business. What does that strategy look like? Who are you going to talk to? Why do they want to talk to you? I never forget, I had a guy ask me one day, like, man, why do you think people do business within telecom? And I said, that's a good fun question. We're good at what we do. And he's like, yeah, I bet you can use that in a sales call and it works, right? Everybody's going to say that. And I started to really think back to like, what brought us to scale? Jimmy and I were fucking terrible technicians, y'all. Terrible. I remember the first phone install I was doing, I didn't even have a punch tool. I was taking the cable with my teeth and sheathing it back and wrapping the copper on the fucking pins. Think about that, y'all. I never forget, I went and did an install one day and I was playing smart hands for this company and they said, you know how to install Cisco equipment? I'm like, yeah. Well, like I get to this site in Milltown, Pennsylvania, and I'm putting for Baker Hughes, and I'm putting this big ass network in, and one of the techs was having a problem, and he goes, you got a console cable? And I was like, yeah, I got a console cable. I had a patch cord. And like, I fucking plugged the patch cord in. The guy was like, man, I'm not seeing the router. I don't know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, he goes, can you take a picture of what you're using and send it to me? And I did. And the guy was like, holy shit, man, do you not know what a console cable is? I said, I do not. Can you enlighten me? So I think through that, right? And I think back to those days, and I really start to try to digest, like, why did people do business with us? The reason people did business with us is because we were nice, because we were kind, and we made every experience great. Every phone system we installed, every time, I remember when we first got into IT, like this lady was telling me she was having problems with her computer, and I remember calling my buddy who's in IT. I'm like, hey man, she's having problems with her computer. What do you think it is? He goes, she needs more RAM. And I was like, okay. I don't know what fucking RAM is, but I went online. I remember buying sticks of RAM, and I didn't realize that you have to buy the same size RAM on each side. So I'm fucking putting their computer. I shut their whole fucking systems down at their office, right? And what I do, I just learned. I just figured it out, and I started to ask more questions, and I got really curious. And then as we started to hire technical staff, I would get in meetings with them, and I would just ask them why, over and over and over again. Why would we do that? Why do you do that? Why didn't you have a VLAN? You know, I taught myself networking because when we first did our first voice over IP product, I'd moved my IP office into a data center, and I had the AdTran router, and we would connect it to a customer site, and like my IP scheme and my data was 192.168.1. So you know what happened with the next person I went to in a small business that their network was 192.168.1? There's a fucking IP conflict. So I had to re-IP their environment. So then I started to realize that you had to put VLANs on the phones, so I knew when there was an issue on the network, I could pinpoint if it was me or not. I was always proving myself wrong, like that it wasn't me. And that's when I got really frustrated with a lot of IT companies, because I started to really expose them and understand that they didn't have any network engineers. And I did. And I didn't understand that. And I get it, they're expensive, right? But I look at how fast a network can shut down an environment. And again, that's what got us into doing managed services. I've only been doing managed services for since the end of 2019. So all the revenue we did before was telecom and physical security. Physical security was more non-recurring revenue, not really contracts. We do about $50,000 a month in contracts there. Is that right? So now I got into infrastructure as a service and started selling routers. The first routers we did, I was doing microtics. And I would pay $89 for a microtik, and then I would put the microtik in, and I would charge $30 a month to manage it. And everybody said, oh man, that's fucking crazy. That's gonna be a nightmare to manage. Well, I was making I bet you we still got some microtiks out there. I was making $50,000 a month to my bottom line on a bunch of microtik routers. So that didn't suck. You know, then we obviously advanced and got into ASAs, and then went to Meraki, and then in the last 2 years, we've done a lot of Fortinet, you know, and we hired engineers, and obviously, some of the conversations that I've been involved in, I have no fucking clue what they're talking about. But it's okay, because I really don't care, right? I just look at the margin on the deal. Can we do the work that they're asking us to do, and can we be successful? And we have failed a bunch, y'all. We have lost clients. That's part of growth. It's going to happen. You lose insight, and you start to, we didn't have churn for years. Like, I hung my head real high, like, we've never lost a client. We've never lost a client. And it was cool to see. Well, we've obviously lost them recently in the last 2 years. Our churn's about 2%, 2% to date. So considering with the mass amount of growth, you know, we do about 1.9 million a month in MRR. is where we are as a company. And then the rest of the revenue is coming from project side. We do about a little under, we average back and forth between 700,000 and $1 million a month in projects. And I don't use project people to do my service, and I don't use service people to do my projects. That's where most IT companies fail. Because they go get a fucking project and they pull people off the service, and then your service people call, they can't get serviced, and you're fucked. Don't do that. Like we did that early in. You can't do that. You got to have degrees of separation in your organization and understand what they do. And it's your job as the owner to ensure that you have business and work for those people to do. Don't ask your technicians to go sell. I see that all the time. They want to put comp plans on a technician. That's crazy. We're not in the AC business. Don't do that shit. Take care of your employees, bonus them, right? If they drive opportunity, great. But that job's already hard enough as being a technician. Should they be looking for opportunity? Sure. Make an investment in a client success team. We didn't do that early in. I felt like as a salesperson, I could do it all, and I didn't need to hire a client success team. We brought in this guy, Gabe, who was too technical. He failed at it. And it was very challenging for me because like that payroll, when we built that department out, was hitting the bottom line for around, I don't know, $50,000, $60,000 a month, which we never had before, right? So it made a direct impact into the business. But then if I look at what Ben was able to do and structure that team and really start taking care of the client, right, and really start understanding, guess what it did? It drove revenue, right? So when you think about your three-legged stool that you have in your business, how do you drive revenue? Where does it come from? Does it come from your account management team? Does it come from your salespeople? It should. Your salespeople should be selling every month. If they're not, you have a pipeline issue. That's the problem, right? I love when I meet salespeople and they're like, yeah, I'm an enterprise guy. I get one deal a year. And I'm just like, okay, one deal? Really? Am I coming up on time? Okay. Yeah, I can wrap it up. And look, I'm here all day today, so if you have questions, but I knew 45 minutes would be really hard for me, so I told everybody that. But yeah, look, I love what I do. I love this business. I'm very passionate about it. I got offered a lot of money last year for the business. People call me every day wanting to buy my company. I'm not owned by private equity. I don't have any investors. It's just hard work and sweat. I like the people I work with. And I like to be able to do the things that I get to do for my employees. And that's why I do it. I'm 40 years old. I have a long runway. I have 3 daughters. I know my life is going to be very expensive. So I know that I got to make a lot of money. So, and again, I'm having fun. If I wasn't having fun every day, I would change my mind. And I really like Corvettes. So, but anybody have any questions? I'm an open book. Feel free to ask. Sure, what you got, man?
You cut a check for Donna yet?
Done.
Oh
yeah, I'm taking care of it. So a funny story about NREC Power Systems, y'all. I got into buying commercial real estate, and I went out and I wanted to just show Mr. Bryan my Corvette because I got it. I was so happy and excited, and I'm forever in debt to Mr. Bryan for giving me that opportunity. And if he would have never gave me the opportunity, I wouldn't be where I was. I still talk to him every day, weekly. I love Bryan. They've gone through some rough times recently, and they had to get a build. They were moving into a new building, and I went out there and I told him, I said, hey man, I'll come out and survey it for you and figure out what cables you need and what network you're going to need, blah, blah, blah. They're still a client today. And I actually bought that building for that man. So yes, I've paid them back. And again, I'm forever in debt to those people. Brian Chasson, look him up on LinkedIn, message him and tell him you heard the story about Shawn, and he'll laugh. Any more questions? What you got?
You were joking about you win a client from your friend, they win one from you, and so basically you go in there, you're trying to get a meeting with some prospective client, and you just want to get a conversation that you talk about. You walk away knowing all about the opportunity that exists. So how does that play out? Like, why are they switching?
90% of the conversations that I have on why people switch from their managed service provider is service. It has nothing to do about tools. It has nothing to do about any of that. And it's not price, because we're not cheap, right? So like a lot of times, like when I walk in and I'm asking questions around like why they don't like their IT vendor, I mean, we all know 90% of them, the reason they don't like their IT vendor is because they don't listen to us and all their shit's fucked up and everything's broken, and then they want us to fix it for free. And it doesn't work that way. But service, I would say service. Like people, they want to understand about your organization. They want to understand that you have a dedicated help desk. Do you have dedicated technicians from a field perspective to service them? And it's the same one over and over again. Do you have a dedicated project team? So therefore, when a project kicks off and we got to roll out 150 laptops, am I going to have to take away from the day-to-day? Right? And that's where that day-to-day technician, a lot of us have done that. We've done that. Like, oh, our on-site tech can just do that project. Well, guess what? Now the on-site shit that was supposed to happen and goes into delay, and guess what? They end up leaving you, right? So don't do that shit. Like, that's what it's about, structure. And I get it, right? It's easier said than done. And yes, it is much easier to make those investments at doing 34 million in revenue, right? But I will tell you, we were doing that at 5 and 6 million. I just was paying myself $40,000 a year. I wasn't paying myself $300,000 a year so I could be able to grow my business. And that's where a lot of IT people fail. Like, man, I had a guy telling me, he's like, yeah, I'm at 40% EBITDA. I'm like, really? 40? Fuck, man, that's crazy. How much revenue are you doing? He's like, 2 million. I'm like, fuck, your techs are fucking struggling. They're getting their ass kicked every day. We know that. And he's like, yeah, they are. I'm like, what's their utilization rate? Oh, we want them at 95%. Yeah, that's not sustainable. Good luck. You know, you're pushing the bar at 85% all day, every day. It's fucking stressful, right? So think about that. There's such thing as too much profit, y'all. We're not in the SaaS business. What we do is very labor intensive, right? It's expensive. You know that. Pay attention to that. If you're not looking at your agreement profitability, you should be. What you got?
How do you find good salespeople, and how much time do you give them before?
How much time really depends on them, right? You could typically see if they're going to evolve at some point. I try to get them to pay for themselves within the first 6 months, and as long as they're paying for themselves, I'm cool, because now I could at least go another year and keep working towards getting them to the end result. Where do you find them? I've tried the experienced ones, and most of them suck because they're in their bad habits and they don't listen to you. I think young people that are hungry, that want to learn, I hired a nurse and she killed it. I hired, Billy was driving in a truck for one of those like chemical companies, dropping chemicals off at people's office. I just saw he had cauliflower ears. So I was like, oh shit, he's a grinder, right? So that's what I look for. I don't look for understand of tech. I understand, are they going to do the work? Are they going to show up every day? Are they going to make the dials? Are they going to work? And are they going to try to perfect it what they do? And I'm very, very quick to ask those questions. I think it's important. I think athletes, anybody that's done high school or college sports are great people to hire because they're competitive, and you want competitiveness in your sales organization. Those people, I think somebody was a college swimmer, right? Yep. So those are the folks that typically do better in a sales environment, I will tell you. But I hired a guy that was selling janitorial services. It's a hard thing to sell, right? So, what you got?
For a small a small MSP, at what MRR should you hire your first salesperson?
How much MRR are you growing right now?
0.
All right, now. Ask yourself why. Why are you not scaling? Hire one and give them a target of $2,500 a month. $2,500 a month is more than what you're doing today. And it's probably going to take them 4 or 5 months. And just think about it. It's a numbers game, right? Good close ratios, anywhere between 18 and 20%. That's good. So how much revenue do you have to have in your pipeline to close $2,500 a month? And just do that. And just write it on paper. You don't need a fancy CRM. Like, look, we have Salesforce and it's fucking expensive and you do some really cool stuff, but you don't need all that. You need a pen and paper and accountability to the number.
I have time for one more question.
On the technical side, you mentioned the bad idea to have your project techs working on service on project, and I get that. But I'm also from the small side where that's a necessity for us today from a staffing perspective.
It's because you don't have any sales.
So when does that change?
It's because you're not selling.
I don't understand.
So if you had a whip that you get to work out of, which is work in progress in the project department, and you reverse engineer that, and if I say I got, I don't know how many project techs we have today, I don't know, 20. So those project techs, how many hours do I need to fulfill in order to keep them working? and I want to backlog that, right? We don't go sell a job today and be like, oh, we're going to be there tomorrow and do it, right? Now, look, is there rush jobs? Do things come up? Sure, right? But I want you to think about that. That's your fault. And I don't know if you're the business owner, but whoever the business owner is, it's their fault because they're not building the work in the back end to keep them working. That's their fault. Are not you? You have salespeople? Yes. Do they sell every month? Yes. Then why don't they have the work to do from a project perspective? If I had to guess, it's because you're selling more MRR and you don't have a dedicated person selling projects. So think about that. Divide and conquer. I used to think that way too. Oh, my sales reps can sell everything. NRR and MRR. So our MRR reps sell MRR. Our NRR reps sell NRR, non-recurring revenue projects.
So did you just hit a tipping point at some point where you said, okay, I've got enough project work from there that I need to hire a dedicated project team?
Yes. And then once I did that, I knew it was my objective that from a KPI perspective that I knew how much hours I had to have on my project team, and I looked at it every single week. We meet weekly and review our KPIs in the company. If you're not reviewing your company KPIs as an organization, that's a problem. That's a big problem. Don't look at your P&L. Your P&L is lying to you. And again, if you need help with some of those things, I'm an open book. I will show you our scorecard and how we look at it. So again, thank y'all very much. Yeah, any help y'all need, we'd love to. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Hey, a couple things. I want to just piggyback off a couple things there, right? So we're talking about hiring, right? And then here's the challenge. A lot of you, when I work with y'all, you go, oh no, I just hired this amazing guy. He's got a Rolodex, right? Or not the Rolodex. I was thinking of your Rolex. But he probably has a Rolex too. But yeah, man, I got the Rolex, or Rolodex. See, there I go again. But that's awesome, right? Now, what do they usually want? That person with the Rolodex, what do they want?
Big base.
Big base, big on target, 200K, 300K guys. I know because I work with a lot of y'all. And then guess what happens? Very low production. And then, Jackie, how long ago did you start with CyberFox? I love giving real examples.
Like almost 4 years ago.
And you had been out of college a year or two?
About a year.
Yeah. And how much technology did you know?
I would say
Close to zero. And do you guys want to guess who our number one rep at CyberFox has been pretty much for 3.5 years? Yeah, good guy. Well, yeah. No, it's Tina. No, that would have been horrible. I'm not an asshole. It's Jack. It's Jack. Anna, what did you do in college? Were you an All-American? So I'd say she's probably pretty good at swimming, right? Were you also all academic? Yeah, pretty good combo, right? How much did you know about technology when you started?
Something like that, but personal, like none.
Yeah. So here's the thing. When you can hire young, somehow we've missed this, and we always think we have to run, got to get the role. Oh man, the person's going to know everything. And the reality is, if we invest, and the thing is, when you say you hire out of college, it's not really what you're getting about like what they've learned, but what you're getting is all of us, right? When we went to college, man, it's fucking 5 or 6 classes every semester. And somehow we learn to assimilate all this information fast that we can turn it into getting an A, hopefully an A. I got it. But,
C.
But, well, I was a high school dropout. Yeah. That's why I got A's in college, because when I got my shit together. But the main thing is, I do like calling this out. And then one other thing, these chairs that you guys are sitting in, every Monday and Thursday, right? What time are we here, guys? 5 o'clock. And sometimes we go to 6:30, right? Sometimes 7. We train. And the sales engineers will be up here, the product people will be up here, and we train. And we teach them everything that we think we know about technology. So I just leave that out there because I want you guys to think about that. If you're having problems with hiring people with, and then you get disappointed, the 6 months comes, it's coming, Adam, it's coming, Shawn, and it doesn't, right?
You burn all that cash. Paying that high base.
And you're burning time.
Yes.
You're wasting time. Don't look past trying to hire young. Now, you're going to have to be involved. There's teaching and training that has to happen. But the cool thing is there's no bias. You get them at the beginning. And then you can what I call imprint on them, right? And then right from the beginning. And then what also goes up? Your retention.
Yes.
because they don't leave. Now, there's other little things we've been talking about, right? Like things like we're very proud at ConnectWise, 16% was set aside for the employees, right? Here we've done the same thing. We set aside that same thing, and once you start here, you've got equity. You're part of the program. We're all going to try to win together, right? A lot of little things there that we could talk about, but I did want to kind of just piggyback because you said some amazing stuff, and I just wanted to share with you and show you evidence on what you can do. And it doesn't always have to be the 200, no disrespect to them, the 250,000 person that's been doing it for 20 years. Go get yourself some young people who are hungry, want to learn, teach them, and invest in them, and then the returns on investment will be huge.
That's been the majority of our successful sales folks have been people that had no experience. Everybody that I've brought in that had experience, like they just haven't done that well. You know, even look, we hired a strategic sales guy thinking he'd go bring in some enterprise deals, and he's been here for a little while now, and he had some distractions. Man, how much revenue has he sold? 0. Think about it, y'all. Like, this isn't rocket science. You just have to work with your people, and you have to really care and help them. And sales is hard. It's the hardest job that there is, right? Because it's very stressful, mentally stressful. But if you just work with them and help them every day, like, you can be successful. Train them. Show them what a router is. Show them how the things function. Like, those things will come up in conversation inside of an environment, you know? And you'll, you know how you weed out bad salespeople? When you set your training at 5 o'clock and they don't fucking show up. There you go.
I had a guy once tell me I got to get home because I got to kick a tree. And I'm like, why you got to kick a tree? And he goes, well, I can toughen up my shins. I said, why you toughen up your shins? He goes, well, I like the, jiu-jitsu and everything. And yeah, I didn't hire that guy.
No. No.
I'm like, hey, you probably got to go somewhere with that. Cool.
You need grinders. Salespeople have to be grinders. If they're not willing to grind, they're not going to be successful. It's not an 8 to 5 job. I don't tell any of my people that work at my company that this is an 8 to 5 job. We don't have a flexible schedule. We don't lie to people. We tell them this is going to be super fucking stressful and we're going to be busy as fuck every day. And if you want to work here, great. If not, that's okay too. But don't start working here and then whine and bitch because you want to work 7 to 2. We don't do that.
Yeah, by the way, right, let's be honest, right? We have 5 vendors here. How many of you have probably taken a call from some of our people, right? You can see these are all great people, right? We call, but, you guys get a lot of calls too. How many times have you said no or hung up? If you got a little short, think about that next time. They're just trying to do a good job. Because I always am when I get those calls. I give them their minute and I'll listen. If it's relevant, sometimes I give them feedback. Do you do that too?
Yes.
Like, hey, can I give you some advice?
That's a good way to recruit too.
Yeah, I've hired some people from Best Buy.
I love when people walk in the door. Like, I think my office is in the very front of my building. So sometimes I'll leave the door open. And if I ever see a sales rep walk in, and if I'm free, or sometimes even when I'm not free, I'm like, hey, come in here for a minute. Tell me what you got. And I love to hear what they have to say, because that art of doing that has gone away. People think that they need to have Zoom info and they got to go do all this research on intent and all this bullshit. I've never used those things, y'all. We have them. Don't get me wrong. We pay a lot of money for that shit. But I don't know.
Can I ask another question? How many people use HubSpot? Okay, good amount of hands. How many people use Manage?
Not for CRM. Get rid of that if y'all do.
Well, wait. I am going to challenge you. One sec, real quick on that. And how many use Autotask and, or Hello, right? Okay. So here's the deal. ConnectWise, right? We grew it. We had 30-some-odd-thousand MSPs, man. I had 300 salespeople here, not including the foreign offices. We literally ran everything through Manage. So
you can't. Right.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Here's why you can, right? But in the end, do you care? No. Any one of those systems I just mentioned, you can run everything you need to know. All the metrics that we talked about, or I talk about, we didn't get into the detail on that. Guys, everything you need, it's there. So, people say, does, ConnectWise, I'll just use that as an example. Can I run sales here? And I go, well, geez, I don't know. I got 300 people here, 2 offices in, Europe and Australia. And we run everything through there, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, thousands and thousands of deals a year, and we did it all there. So if you think you can't do it, you all pretty much raise your hand on one of those things, you all got the system of record, but you got to learn a little bit too. You got to invest in yourself. Don't be afraid. Sales is just another thing.
Yeah, systems don't close deals. Systems don't close deals. I've made that mistake in the past where I'm like, oh, we need a new CRM because we're going to get a new CRM. We're going to drive more revenue. Guess what happened? Nothing. Like, that's not what's going to drive business. Holding yourself accountable to activity is going to drive business.
We could do this all day.
Yes.
We love this shit. But if you want to ever pick any of our brains, hit us up. I love this stuff. Just don't be afraid. I think take the barriers down, invest in yourselves. You know, salespeople. Jackie, do you guys think Jackie's scary? Jackie's not. Oh, you think? Oh, well, she is. Hey, trust me, she's a good salesperson. Anna, she's not scary. Tina, you scary? Sometimes. You know, I like to hear that a little bit. Good job. You know, but the bottom line, ain't nobody going to bite your head off when you invest and get and learn sales and just make sure you have your cadences, just like you do with your tech stuff. You're going to meet with your service desk people. You meet with your salespeople once a week. How's it going? And then you use your system so you can look at the activity, right? No activity. What usually you get when you have no activity? What's the quotient there?
No opportunities.
Nothing, right? So do something, you know.
Build a scoring system. You can build a scoring system to where, like, think about a number and a dial is 2 points and a conversion is 5 points and a meeting is 15 points. And require them to get 100 points a day. And then at the end of the week, when they're new, and you say, well, hey, how many points did you get? And they're like, oh, I got 50. Okay, well, you're either unwilling or you're unable. Which one is it? I love to ask that question to people.
By the way, let's talk about that real quick. So let's say you got to 100 points as your goal using that system. And then let's say in 1 week, you got 100 points, and every one of those things was because you left a voicemail. Is that bad? No, because it's a numbers game. So my teams always know that if you're going to have 75% or voicemail, what I always say is when you get a voicemail, congratulations, you're just that much closer.
12 touches, y'all. Think about it. Like,
numbers.
I don't know how many reps I asked. Like, man, I've been calling this person. I can't get him on the phone. I'm like, what, did you email him? And they're like, no. I'm like, why not? Did you LinkedIn message him? You know, this is a cool story. I got to tell this because y'all love this. There was this building.
Take a deep breath.
This is quick. This is really good, though. So there was this company that was building a building around the corner from my main office. And I saw it going up, and I kept logging into Salesforce and not seeing it come up. And, like, the name of the company is Test Communications. And I was like, man, I wonder why this isn't hitting our pipeline. Like, I know they're building a new building. They're going to need cameras. They're going to need network. They're going to need phones. They're going to need IT. They're going to need everything we have to offer. Why isn't this hitting? So I'm like, waiting. But one day, like, it's getting close to, like, they're closing the building in. And I know they're going to probably be making decisions. So I was like, I just drove over there. And I got out the car, and the construction guy was there. I was like, hey, man, who owns this company? And he's like, Darren Wagner does. And I was like, okay, thanks. Drove back to my office, and I go in Zoom info. I can't find Darren Wagner. So, like, I'm Googling, and I'm trying to figure out how to get in touch with Darren Wagner. I can't get his cell phone number. So I'm like, I wonder if he's got a Facebook. Well, I went on LinkedIn first. He didn't have a LinkedIn. I'm like, ooh, I wonder if he has a Facebook account. Sure enough, he's got a Facebook account. So what did I do? I logged into Facebook Messenger, and I messaged him. And I said, hey, man, my name's Shawn Torres. I see you have a building going up. I'd love to talk to you about your technology in the building, and do you have anybody helping you with it? Immediately, the guy responds. He said, man, I'm glad you reached out. I've been riding in front of your building every day, and I've been waiting for somebody to reach out to me. Nobody has. 2 days later, I went and had lunch with that guy. He signed a deal with me, $9,000 a month MSP. And I went and rubbed it in everybody's face in the sales department. I'm like, y'all drove past this fucking building every single day. It just didn't stop. Why? And they're like, well, the sign said Test Communications, so we thought they were a competitor. Well, they build fucking cell phone towers. We don't build cell phone towers. Who gives a fuck if they're a competitor? I laugh because I had one of my guys called CMA the other day. And I just think it's funny. I was like, you realize they're a fucking IT company, right? But again, it's okay. If you don't have a CRM and you don't want to spend a bunch of money, do a spreadsheet. Make them fucking track it. It's their job.
By the way, I'm familiar with most of the systems.
You can do this.
Every one of the systems I mentioned, they have that built in. So, for example, ConnectWise, it's defaulted to this point system you talked about. 1 for a call, 2 for a call. I can't get it out of my head.
I will tell you all, it works. And it's a good way with a new rep that when they come in, for them to see success, right? Because a new rep's not going to close business. And it's very defeating as a salesperson to walk in and all these people are hitting the gong and high-fiving and they're closing deals. And you're like, fuck, man, nothing's working for me. And it's like, no, it is working because you're doing your 500 points. Like, let's look at the 500 points and figure out what's not working. Because if I'm doing 500 points and I'll have no conversions, what do I need to work on? Messaging. Your messaging's off. So let's sit down and let's talk about messaging. And I don't say I'm going to do it for you. I say dial. And it's very intimidating when they're looking at me and they're like, oh, fuck. And I'm like, dial, man. And I hear them on the phone and they're like, hey, this is John with Intellicom. We do IT phone. Do you have any interest for that? And I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, what do they say? No, I'm good. Okay, thanks. You can't say that shit. Like, that's not what you should say, right? I love to just call. Hey, Bob, it's Shawn. How's it going, man? All good.
They're willing to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Now you can teach them those things. By the way, I'll blow you guys' mind because usually when I do this thing with MSPs, because we like to manage costs and volatility, we get worried about, I put my MSP hat on, runaway commissions, right? Because everyone's scared, oh my God, they could blow me up. So I'm going to go to Anna again because she's right here. Anna's a BDR, right? How long now? A year and a half? Year? So when you make over 1,400 outbound calls or more in a month, what happens? What's that? But what happens? You get paid, right? Yeah. Okay, sorry. 'Cause I know, you're like, where the fuck's he going with this? So, okay, the takeaway is you made that, right, that 1,400 calls and above, you get paid, right? It triggers payout. So I say, congratulations, you're at the beginning of the journey. You got to do something. Then the next thing is we got to create opportunities because that's the validation that the call is working. What happens when you make a certain amount of opportunities? What do? What happens? And what else? More money, because we pay for opportunities created. So if you looked at my comp plans, right, here I am, hey, make some calls, make some phone calls, make this minimum of 70 calls a day times 20 business days, and you get paid, right? So there's no degree of if you make less, if you make 1,399 calls, you get 0, right? But if you make the 1,400 or greater, you get, you get money.
A bonus.
You get a bonus. Then what happens is to validate that, okay, now you've got the activity, going, you're making the effort. Are they converting into opportunities? And then so based on that, I will absolutely pay more money as they create more opportunities. And then that's a scale, right, where you can get paid on that. And then what's the ultimate way that you make your commissions? Deals closed, right? So then they're tied to it. Now, BDRs generally aren't closers. You work with a rep, right? And then those reps, they're the ones that have more experience like Jackie, and then they go ahead and close the deal. And if you think about it, all we just did was the sales journey. So why not pay them along the journey, And for years I've gotten asked, so you pay them to do their job? And then I go, yes, right? Who cares?
Yep.
So if they win,
that's still data too, y'all.
You all win.
You all forget, like, you all pay big money for these lists and for these outsourced SDRs, like, if you take the calls they're making and put that data into your system, think about as you scale your business, like maybe she couldn't get that deal to convert, but the next person that calls, you hand them that list and they dial and they just say it different and they get that to convert. So think about the data that you're getting too. So you should be paying for that data, right? That's how we do our ramp with new reps coming in. Like, we're going to pay you a ramp, but you have activity to get ramp. So if you want to make your $5,000 check this month, like, you got to do $1,400. You got to create X amount pipeline the next month, and you're building that momentum. And then what happens is they start to learn on how to get there and how to succeed. And look, does it always work out? No. And when it doesn't, like, that's the good thing about salespeople. They fire themselves. But you got to give it time, y'all. Don't rush that shit and think that they're going to do it in the first month, because they're not. Just like if I hired a help desk person, are they going to go in and kill tickets on the first month? No. And should you, look, we've made that mistake. Take a brand new person. Oh, shit, we're busy. Here, sit here, log in here, do tickets. How's that work out for the client? Not good, right? What do? You got to work with them. You got to train them. You got to show them how do they get an RMM. Teach them about the client. Go over documentation. It's the same fucking concept in sales. Just so many people in MSP say, we don't know how to do it. It's do that. It's the same concept.
Do you have something formal in place for, like, in the middle of a project that you brought to me lead to an upsell opportunity?
Yes.
Do you have a commission structure?
So I do profit sharing on my entire company. So the way it works is that 12% net, the company keeps. Anything above 12%, the next 2% goes to all the employees, not us. And I've been trying to think of better ways to even do that more. But yes. But if you build a culture of probability, look, there was a time when we went through a phase where like our help desk was super busy. They were getting their ass kicked every day. We weren't hiring fast enough. We all went through it in COVID. You couldn't find people. Like, you know what I did? I drove to my bank one day. I went and pulled out $10,000, $12,000 cash. I put $500 in an envelope, and I walked around the building and I handed everybody $500 cash. You know how much that fucking $500 meant to a guy making 50 grand? A lot. And it takes the burden a little away from the pain. And it also takes the burden away when they see me as the owner of the company, my business partner as the owner of the company, in the trenches with them. I had a guy tell me every new hire group, we just had 14 in the last new hire group, and one of the guys, Joseph from Texas, said, Shawn, I've been working at this company a year and a half, and the first day you came in, and for you to walk in and go sit in the sales department and dial and work with our sales team and actually do it and set meetings and educate them and teach them, like, man, it reminds me of a leader I had when I was in Afghanistan, and like I would have fucking died for this guy, and a guy like you, I'll run through a wall for you. And I'd run through a wall for him.
Great question, by the way. Who are the military guys again? Did everybody else do 20? You do 20. Yeah, right on. So, remember our good leaders, right? We remember them well. Like for me, I always talk about, because you get kind of old, but, Colonel Powell and Schwarzkopf, they were amazing. Do you guys remember the bad leaders? Remember when you got a shitty leader? Horrible.
Yeah, so be a good leader in your organization and work with them. I think that's the key. You know, if I look at, you have to earn the right to discipline people, right? And they're human, and I'm very aggressive, obviously, right? So like I've made those mistakes. So think about it from that perspective too, is that you have to earn the right to discipline them, right? I've never been a step parent, right? But I think if I was a step parent, I was to walk in and I got this new child, I can't just walk in trying to discipline them day one, right? You have to earn the respect to do that. And I think it works the same way with employees. And employees are going to make mistakes. And I don't think anybody gets up and goes to work and makes a decision that they want to do something wrong. And yes, it sucks. You know, I had a guy tell me one day, he said, you know, Shawn, we had a big mistake happen. And it was like costing me like 30 grand. And I freaked the fuck out, and I was all pissed off that it cost me 30 grand, right? And I remember the guy walking in my office. His name's Dave Bourgeois. You know Dave Bourgeois? He used to run my IT for years. And Dave was a mentor of mine. I actually hired him. It was kind of cool when he sold his company to the Purple Guys. He came and worked for me and did some mentorship, helping me get my MSP started. And Dave sat me down in his office, and I'm sorry for the language I'm about to use, but he looked at me and he goes, you know, Shawn, I didn't realize you were such a pussy. And I was like, what is that? What you mean? He goes, man, you don't think people are going to make mistakes here that are going to cost you money? And I was like, yeah. He's like, you cannot freak out over a $30,000 mistake. Your net income last month was $300,000. And you're bitching about 30 grand? Relax. And he's right, you know? So we got to remember that, y'all, and understand that when we're in our business and those mistakes happen, like those people don't do that shit on purpose. You know, and I'm very vulnerable. I'm very transparent. I know that I'm not the best, but I know this. I work harder every single day than what I did the year before. And I've been doing this 15 years. I've never had to borrow money to run my business. I've never had to deposit money. I've just made a lot of deposits of time and energy in my business. And I will tell you all, I'm getting a lot of withdrawals. And I'm going to end it there.
Yeah, we better.
Yeah, I can sit here all day and talk this shit. Thank you.